Robert will really enjoy it.
Listen. Hey.
Speak up.
Hurry, honey.
What's that?
Hurry.
Hey.
My aunt Nora.
Okay.
Cemetery is a family cemetery.
Okay, but when nobody can hear you over here.
My family and my cousin's family, first cousins.
But tell us.
Your grandfather was the first owner?
My grandfather homesteaded this place.
How many years ago?
But Uncle Gilbert, tell
A
the
lot.
little ones what a homestead is, because I bet they don't know.
It was a deal with the government where people would sit out. People came from like Columbus and them came over here, and then the government got together. They started. The government would give you property if you took care of the property, and you wouldn't have to pay like for the property. Homestead. It was called a homestead. I'm sure you guys read about it in history.
Homestead Act.
Yeah, it was a homestead act that the
I
government had.
hope you read about it.
And my grandfather homesteaded this place, so it's been in my family that
Now,
long.
exactly from like this ridge to this one, and how far?
We own from this fence right here, that's right here. We own from that fence to the bottom down there where the pond is, and back up this way. We own about almost to the top of this little mountain here, and then we own about 65 acres up on top of this
Wow.
ridge.
How many acres?
It's 122 acres is the whole ranch. I own 62, and my brothers and sisters and my mom own the other half. Because I bought this half from my aunts, my dad's brothers and sisters.
Okay, this is one thing I want to know. Your grandfather homesteaded here. Is he your mother's or your dad?
My dad's side of the family.
It's the Noriega.
Yes,
That homestead.
yes.
And the cemetery is a family
The
cemetery.
cemetery, yes, is all.
Well, and Uncle Gilbert told
Uncles
us
and-
earlier the house that you see coming in, that was their
Yeah,
house.
that was my great grandmother's house.
From
On my dad's side,
Noriega.
yes. The Abetas, they were Abetas. On my dad's side, they were his father and mother were Abetas.
Where did the Noriega come in?
The nigga came in with my grandfather, my dad's dad. He got married with my dad's mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was a Beta, he was Noriega. And that's where they came in. And then they came up here and homesteaded this place.
It's a long time.
Very long time.
So you treasure this place. The family has treasured it because it's always been the family.
The roots.
Always, yeah.
There's some deep roots here.
Well, thank you for letting us come up here.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're all welcome.
We appreciate it. We love it here.
Next year.
Yeah.
Anytime.
A while ago I forgot to mention
Honey,
that we have three siblings.
come and sit over here,
Pete Jr.,
please.
Corey, Lucero, Gerald, and Ashley.
You know, I had a hard time. I mean, we're all taking pictures and we're all having a good time, blah, blah, blah. And then Corey said, I want a picture of me and Ashley and my brother and my sister. And so then they stood up at the tree. And I still get choked up. That was hard for me.
Always a good picture, right?
We're so lucky though to have you.
Yeah, so it's important to have you guys here.
Yeah, was that very
every
happy.
year.
Yeah.
I will be here.
Just always remember who our family is.
Okay, now I'm going to tell you a little story.
Listen, Ryan has something to say.
Is it about Antonio Pino?
Sean. Ryan was talking.
Go in the corner.
Oh, God.
Next year, in the year of 1927, something good happened to the country. A little baby was born in Las Vegas, New Mexico.
I was born in 47.
In April 1st, April Fool's Day.
Yes.
Yes, April Fool's Day.
And he grew up a little. The first thing that I'm going to say, it's a miracle that I'm standing here alive. When I was 6 years old, almost not, maybe not quite, maybe 6 years, maybe. My younger brother was 4 years younger than me. He was about this little, about this big. I found, we came out of a poor family, a very poor family. And I was, found an old roller skate. And I was building me a scooter, put a 2x4 on the back and the wheels on the back, and I was going to build it. And he come out here and grabbed one of the wheels from me, and he got in a little squabble with me. And he said, "This mine." And he walked around here like this, and got a claw hammer, and walked around, stand in this corner, and he went like that. And he put a hole right here, and everybody wants to see it, they can come over and look at it.
That Uncle Benny
Right
was
there.
never any good, was he?
Well, he was so small that he couldn't handle. He couldn't he didn't have strength to handle that hammer, you know. But
Just dropped
he
it on you.
he kind of dropped it on me, and he went right on down. Doctor told my mother, says, if he'd traveled a little bit more, I wouldn't be alive. Okay, anyway, I kept on growing. My father was a sheriff, farmer, and rancher. He had a few cows, and he would farm a lot. And I would be right along with him. When I was about 7 years old, my brother and my uncle Julian Sena, great uncle Julian Sena, had gathered a bunch of wild horses, and they brought him into the corral, and I was standing on top, and my uncle Julian was a big old cowboy wearing a side weapon all the time. He had mustache up to his ears, and mean Mexican, mean man. He said, "Pedro, which horse do you like?" In Spanish. I said, "That little black one." Leandro, rope that horse. He roped that horse. I was only 7 years old. And he put this hakima on him. And he just grabbed me and put me on that horse. He had a horse by the ear. He turned him loose. Made a couple of jumps there, and I fell off. Put me back in it. The second time the horse tried to balk a little bit, and I fell down. 3 times. Okay, he said, tomorrow you're going to ride him all day long. And that gave me a horse for a long time. A few months after that, that same horse and a cousin of mine went to visit us, the family. And he jumped in back riding double, and he punched the horse in the bottom, and the horse knocked it, threw us off, and I got hung up in the stirrup.
Oh my God.
And that horse dragged me about 200 yards. He peeled the skin out of my back. The hair was gone. Took me to a doctor, and he said, he's all right, he'll be all right. Well, my father made a lease, a piece of land in a village called Los Torres, New Mexico, by Chaparrito, where he was born. He made a deal for a big piece of land and another piece to farm and a house and corrals and barns and everything. My mother could not go to that place at the present time because she was pregnant from Fred Lucero, and the doctor was expecting trouble with her. So my father and I decided to move over there by ourselves right away. So we hitched up a team of Kentucky mules that he had. He hitched them up to the wagon. We loaded the stove, we loaded some bedding, we We loaded about 20 chickens in a cage, and got 4 or 5 horses, and about eight cows, and some horses, and we took off. It's about 28-mile trip on a horse and wagon, and I was riding a horse and leading some of the others, herding the cattle, herding them, pushing them. And we didn't make it to the place that night. We pitched camp, and I hobbled the horses. I was 9 years old. This was in late February. And we pitched camp, and we ate supper, and turned the cows loose in a little valley. And he cooked a small pot of beans in a hole in the ground. Next morning we had some beans, and he chopped again. And we went and we landed about in the middle of the afternoon. And we settled down. This house was built the old style, like an L shape. The first room had an outside entrance. The second room had an outside entrance. The next 4 rooms had entrance from this room to that room to that room to that room to that, and there was 2 more rooms like that. Only one of them had an outside entrance. That's the old style. And we pitched camp, got everything, and we made our bed and our kitchen. And we started working. We were going to start working the land. On April, I wasn't going to have no birthday. I didn't matter. I didn't give it them about birthdays. And my mother had gotten pretty sick. And an uncle of mine and another brother of mine, Horace, went to the ranch to pick us up, to take us back to Las Vegas, where she was going to have the baby. We couldn't decide, or they couldn't decide. I was too young. I didn't matter. No, that day I was 10 years old, and they just started making decisions there. I could hear them and everything. And if my dad and I both left the ranch, who was going to take care of the stock? Who was going to take care of everything? And we decided, my uncle told that Pedro can stay. He's made enough, he's big enough. So that decision was made. And my father went with them, and I stayed about 3 weeks all by myself, taking care of the stock, feeding them and everything. I was 10 years old. Where do you find a 10-year-old boy that can do that? Tell me.
We're looking at him.
And
Good job, Roberto.
the first night that I was alone, there was big cottonwood trees around the house, big trees. The first night, the afternoon came pretty like now, So I went in, I got to bed, and the owls started talking to each other. One on that tree over there, and one other tree. While my dad was there, it didn't matter. The owls all played all night long, and I didn't give a shit. That night when I was alone, I did. Oh man, a coyote would howl out there, and I could hear him inside there. I had 2 dogs. One German police, about regular German police size, and the other dog was a mix of German police and some other dog that made him grow bigger than the other one. It's a pretty good sized dog. And the second night, I said, I want to bring this dog inside with me. They were outside dogs. We never bought food for them. They were completely outside dogs. And and I couldn't get them in the house. I begged them, and they wouldn't go in the house. They go up to the door and they come back, just like a damn dog, you know. Next night, put a little food here, little food over here that I had left from my supper, and I got one of them in there. And he lay down. I made him lay down with me, and I wasn't scared no more. The third night I had them both in there, and boy, I had a good time. One of my cows got lost.
Hey, tell him about the hat hanging.
I don't quite remember that one.
Well, you thought somebody was standing there
No.
when you opened your eyes. You saw you had a hat hanging somewhere and you opened your eyes and you thought it was a person.
Yeah, I thought it was a person in my dad's hat. Well, there you know, and I thought he was another man standing there, and I didn't know what it had to do with it. But I already had my dogs in there, so it wasn't too bad. And one of my cows got lost. She walked out, so I saddled my horse, and here goes all day long looking for her. Couldn't find her. Next day I saddled my horse and I went and I found her. My dogs were with me, and she was giving me trouble. I couldn't hurt her. You know, she was trying to get away from me. And finally I got tired. Jack, get her! These dogs at full speed. One of them, Jack, went to the head, and the bounce went to the tail. They knocked that house, that cow, and they knocked it over about 3 times like that. And she laid there, and the dog just stood right there, looking at her, and they were trembling like that. And, okay, I called him back. Come on, Jack, let's go. That cow just walked right straight to the ranch. All the way. Never decided to go anyway. It took almost 3 weeks before my dad returned.
What'd you eat? How'd you eat?
We tried to...
You want me to move?
The weather got so dry that there was no feed for the cattle and there was no feed for the horses. They had a rainstorm out in the back in the higher mountains, and they blew off the irrigation dam, so we weren't going to have no crops. We weren't going to have it so dry that we couldn't do nothing. This happened. This was about a year past. I was 11 years old then. My mother and the kids were already at the ranch, so my dad made another deal with another person in Antonchico, New Mexico, which is about, I think it's about 23 miles west of where we used to live. And so here we go again. We loaded all the furniture. My dad made a little house for my mother and the kids in the back of the wagon. We put the stoves, pipes for the stove in the tongue of the wagon, and here we go again to Antonchico. We got over there and we had a good place. We had a good year, everything. And then the owners of the land decided to do something different with it. So there we were without it. So we went to Earth, Texas, and started working over there. And we come back to Antonchico in 2 years. All that time I missed two years of school, and I didn't have too much education then. So we kept on going, and then we moved back to Las Vegas, and everything started getting better for us. And I was getting big. I went back to school, and in the summertime, my older brother, used to take me out to work on road constructions. I got drafted in the Army when the World War was just almost over, and went and passed my, done my duty, come back. And I was being shipped to Japan. And they changed the orders. You know how they do in the Army, don't you?
I do.
From San Diego, California,
Yes, don't we all?
put us on a troop train. We went clear to Camp
those?
Kilmer, New Jersey. And I got tired of that trip, boy. On the way over there, we stopped at Fort Riley, Kansas.
Oh, you know where that
Oh,
is.
that's a crap hole.
I think the people here knows where that is. And they unloaded us. We got there and in the afternoon. They unloaded us, fed us some corned beef hash and some other stuff for supper. We slept in the barracks, shower. Next morning we had breakfast and we up to Fort Dix, New Jersey. When I got there, they offered us a chance. The war was just over then. They gave us a chance to re-enlist in the regular army and get out quicker, one year quicker. So I said, the hell with it. I'm going to re-enlist because they gave us $280 cash and 14 days furlough. And there was this girl in Las Vegas, New Mexico, that I wanted. If I don't get her now, and go over there and spend 2 years in the war, occupation army, I'm liable to lose that one girl. I started thinking, I got to do something here. I re-enlisted, went home on furlough. On the second day of January, this lady said, okay, I'll marry you. And
That better be my grandma.
you think so?
That better be my mom you're talking about there, boy.
She was a pretty little chubby little girl, no pretty.
That must have not been her because her pictures are sexy, sexy, baby. You gotta marry her.
So here I go, I
figure.
report to Fort Bliss, Texas. Another troop train. I went back by the Fort Riley, Kansas. I went to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey. I got sent to Europe, Belgium, Germany, and then I got stationed in Paris, France. That was great.
Yeah, it is.
That increased my education. I stayed in Paris, France for almost a year. I come back, and it was only my wife working, nobody else was waiting for me. So we got her, and we had one boy, and then we had another girl, and then for a long time we didn't have any. Then we had this lady, this girl, Carlene, wild.
Tornado! Tornado! What can I say?
Then we had Pete Jr. That started this whole goddamn thing. Everything.
He said.
Yeah.
Oh, I know I did something with those girls.
No, he said he had one girl and then a tornado.
One good girl.
I think that tornado had another little tornado.
Thank you.
Anyway, I think that's a pretty good story of a little boy that was born in Las Vegas, New Mexico.
It is.
Think? Everybody think?
Yes.
I think so.
All
We
right.
agree.
I'm sure glad you married my mother.
Little girl born in born now.
Yes.
Daddy,
Story I want to hear too.
I'm sure very thankful to you for marrying my mother.
Grandpa.
But let me get a.
Well, she had something to do with it.
Yeah, I know she had a lot to do with it. But I'm just very happy that you guys have worked together to make a...
I had a little problem getting her.
I hope so.
Wait, listen. Grandpa. Listen, Daddy. Grandpa. You had 14 days to convince convince her to marry you?
Yeah, how'd you do that?
What did you do?
Really?
Said she did on the second day, right?
It was on the second day.
So you guys,
Yeah, Grandpa.
January. So
Wait.
you got your furlough on January the 1st, and you got married on January the 2nd.
No.
I got my furlough in December. I spent Christmas at home.
Okay, now, how did you convince her to marry you on January 2nd?
Hey, Daddy.
Rich, you got $280.
Hey, Daddy. Daddy, I have a question, Daddy.
Wait.
I have a question.
Granny.
I have a question.
Wait, what? Granny.
When you were on your furlough before you and Mom got married, during that time, when you got married on January 2nd, when did you leave back?
The 7th.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you had 7 days and 6 nights of married bliss.
Yeah.
5 days.
5 days.
5 days.
Okay. That mine was 1 day. You had 5 days. Well, good for you, huh? And Mommy, I want to say thank you for staying with my dad all these years.
Poor woman.
You're a very hard worker. You work very, very hard to take care of him.
That sounds familiar because Steph and I only had 4 days of marriage bliss when I went to Afghanistan.
Well, Joe and I got married and you got to
64 years.
Grandpa.
Hey, Dile, we're hard to train.
What are we doing or something?
I just, when my girls went to Las Vegas, you said that she makes a lot better. What made it?
It's in the family. Yeah.
Work.
I think so. It's our second.
I was born with 2 million.
Yeah.
A little bit. You heard about the Big Depression. I was born then. That's why we were poor.
I know.
Because everybody was poor as that.
Is that why you were moving around?
Yeah, that's why we were moving around so much.
Yeah.
And because of the depression. And
She's over right there. Right there.
when we moved back to Las Vegas, things got bad because we all started getting jobs. My father started getting jobs.
Oh, thank you, Joe.
Jobs.
That's because they were.
We were even in the 49 and up to about 52. We were in the construction business.
Well, that's what. That's
We
what
had
brought